All right, it's Terry Lickona. We are back here on the stage of Austin City Limits in the Moody Theater with the man himself, Ray Wylie Hubbard. And that was quite an hour. Wow, it flew by so fast.
It really did. Well, having these guys, my son's been playing with me for about almost, 10, 12 years now, and then Kyle about 4 years. But then Buck and Gurf played with me a long, long time ago, so I called these guys up. And then with Buck and Gurf and these guys, I just had to hang on.
You can't go wrong with them.
No, I can't, no.
The whole band sounded great.
Thank you.
Obviously it's a big deal, your first time on Austin City Limits after 46 years, but you've lived long enough to have experienced a lot of firsts in your life.
I have done a lot of firsts, but, like I say, I just mentioned, being on Austin City Limits, and I said, well, that's kind of, 73, kind of making your debut. And I go, well, man, I didn't want to peak too soon, still feel like there's, that carrot is dangling in front of me that keeps me riding and doing it. So, yeah, it was definitely a thrill.
And one thing we should mention for the benefit of the folks out there who may not know, although I bet your hardcore fans do know, that you've got a new album out this year.
Yes.
And it's on a pretty big deal record label, Big Machine,
Big
out of
Machine.
Nashville.
Yes.
It's called Costarring.
Yes.
And they wouldn't be too pleased if we forgot to mention that fact,
No, it all kind of started. I mean, with actually one of the tracks when I mentioned I have a beetle, an eagle, a crow, and a was not was, is I've known Ringo Starr for about, I guess about 7 or 8 years. And Judy and I went to see him play out in Santa Fe at the Opera House. And we were just back there talking. He said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm going to make a record. And he said, well, if you need a drummer, let me know. And I thought he was just being gracious, trying to, like I would do, just, go away. But I wrote the song Bad Trick, and then I called up a fellow, Brent Carpenter, and I said, hey, what do you think about this? He said, well, I'll play it, for Ringo. And then I got this text that said, be in L.A., this was about a year and a half ago, be in L.A. next Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and I'll play drums on the track. So I went out there and went to his house, and he has an incredible studio there with Bruce Sugar as the engineer. And so it was just me and a guitar, and he played the drums on it. And it was just, whoa, phenomenal. And he said, who are you going to get to play bass? And I said, I don't really know. He said, how about Don Was? And I said, I don't know him. I've only met him once. He said, well, I'll ask him. He said, who's going to play guitar? And I went, I don't know. He said, I'll ask my brother-in-law. And so because of Ringo, I got Joe and Don Was on it. And I'd known Chris for a while, so I called him up and said, hey, man, you want to sing on this? And he said, sure. So so that happened. And then so it wasn't something I planned. I just happened to call up different artists and say, hey, you want to go in and track, and Pam Tillis. And so, and then Aaron Lee and then Tyler Bryant and Larkin Poe and Ashley McBride. It just kind of fell into place, And so, like I say, it just, I'm very grateful.
Well, there's another first for you, playing with the Beatles.
Yes,
You had to wait more than 46 years for that to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's talk about Co-Starring, the new album. Is it fair to say that the songs, or at least some of the songs on the new record, are a little bit on the darker side?
Well, Rock Gods is because of the whole, Tom Petty and the Highway 91 horrific thing that happened. And so, but then there's it, like I say, I kind of have a foot in both worlds, where I can kind of write. So, yeah, it has a darkness to it, but then there's somewhere in there there's still that hope. No matter how dark a song gets or whatever, that I still try to throw in that there's still some hope to do it. So, but to answer your question, yeah, it's a darker than a lot of records.
Well, I mean, your songwriting in general it comes from all sorts of places.
Right.
It's inspired by all sorts of things. In fact, I know for a fact that literature has a lot to do with your inspiration for your songs. And you love books. You still love to read books. You grew up as an only child, and you spent a lot of time reading at the public library.
Yeah, in the Dallas Public Library. My dad was an English teacher, and so when I was very, very young, he'd, instead of reading Three Little Pigs, he'd read The Raven to me. And so I would have these discussions. He'd give me a book, Tale of Two Cities, and, I was a little bit 8 or 9 or so, and then we'd have to discuss them. And then being an only child, back at the time, every day after school, I'd ride the bus down to the Dallas Public Library, and I knew the Dewey Decimal System by heart. I mean, I could, take history. And so, and literature still really is important. A lot of songwriters will ask me, young songwriters, they say, well, give me some advice about songwriting. And so I say, well, don't just listen to Bruce Springsteen's The Ghost of Tom Joad. Read The Grapes of Wrath. See where Bruce Springsteen got his inspiration.
Good advice.
So reading's still very important to me.
So where do you get your sense of humor, which has a lot to do with your songwriting too?
Well, I don't know. I think my mom and my dad, they were both very funny people, and so I don't really know. I feel fortunate, to like I say, to look at the world through kind of like say both sides. I can write a really dark song like Rock Gods, but then also I can write Snake Farm, which is fun, and it's one of those things that when I got clean and sober when I was 41, and somewhere in there I made a commitment that I was going to write songs not to see what I could get, but to see what I could contribute with my songs, whether it was somebody smiling or somebody thinking about a line or somebody just dancing. So, and in this so crazy world, I try to have a sense of humor and also have a sense of gratitude.
One thing you've said is that you've learned once you write a song, not to doubt it.
Yeah, fear and doubt are the things that I think limit us. I think, I guess James Allen, said that. But fear and doubt are the things that limit us. As a songwriter, you remove your fear and your doubt. You don't doubt it, and that way it's unlimited. You can end up on Austin city limits. Remove your fear and doubt. You know what I mean. And so that's very important to write a song. And like I say, I feel very fortunate to have that freedom to write whatever. I'm not writing because I have a publishing deal, and I'm not writing to try to get somebody to record the songs. I'm just writing like, oh, okay, I'll write a song about Mississippi John Hurt, or I'll write about a woman who has outlaw blood. So, so I have that freedom. And for me, that's really, because I've never been a mainstream writer. And so I feel very fortunate.
I think you're also living proof, Ray Wylie, that you can teach an old dog new tricks, or an old dog can learn new tricks.
Oh, yes.
You learned how to fingerpick when you were in your 40s. You learned how to play open D tuning.
Yes.
And so you obviously still love to learn, not just about music, but about life,
everything,
the world around you.
Well, the thing about, at 42, I learned to fingerpick, and then I learned open tunings, then I learned slide. And by learning new things, that gives the song a door to come through that wasn't there before. If I hadn't learned open D tuning and got a slide, I wouldn't have got Train Yard Blues, or you know what I mean? So I keep trying to learn new things, and my wife Judy says that's just fine. It's well and good as long as I don't try to learn to play banjo. She said, don't. So, but I have to sneak.
Got to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah, have to draw really have to draw the line somewhere. But, like I say, I feel very fortunate, as an old cat, to have seen Lightning Hopkins and Mance Lipscomb and Freddie King and Ernest Tubb and Gary Stewart and Waylon and Towns and Guy. To have seen these performers, I feel so fortunate just to have seen them, and let alone, know some of them. And so my influence, as you mentioned, is kind of all over Texas music, folk, blues, rock, and so I feel very fortunate to be able to write with that freedom.
Well, you obviously still love what you're doing. It's a little bit sad, or maybe ironic is a better word, that in this year, not only did you get to do Austin City Limits for the first time, you got a brand new record on a really great record label out of Nashville. You got to record with the Beatle, Ringo himself.
Yes.
And we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, isn't that? But it's even though it's a very dark time right now, each day I keep coming back to find something to be grateful for, and that kind of that helps, trying to find, no matter what it is, if it's just some small little thing, to that attitude of gratitude, and that keeps it from just completely, crawling under the bed and screaming, I mean, it just, so I find things to be grateful for.
We all need that.
Oh, yes.
Well, what can I say? Best of luck to you. Congratulations. And we look forward to seeing you soon with a few other people in the room.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Terry.
Sure,
it meant the world to me to be here.
Congratulations.
Thank you.